The pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I do not believe we have special recognition. Excuse me.
Yeah.
All right, I'm turning it over to our superintendent.
Yes. Good evening. Tonight we have with us a very special guest who is a member of the Georgia House of Representatives. And at this time, I'd like to introduce him. Representative Dave Belton, representing District 112. Representative Belton has been a member of the House of Representatives since January 2015. And so we certainly appreciate you being here. For the record, we have sent invitations to our Newton delegation to participate in our board meeting tonight to discuss education legislation and the impact that it would have on our school system. And so I did hear from Senator Ronald Ramsey, and he was not sure if his calendar would permit him to be here this evening. Representative Pam Dickerson, representing District 113, and who is also a member of the House of Representatives. She is actually ill, so she was unable to be here. And we heard from Representative Andy Welsh, and he was he RSVP'd, but he was not certain if he could be here either. Our delegation is comprised of Senator Rick Jeffries, District 17, and he has been serving in the Senate since 2010. Senator Ronald Ramsey is District 43, and he has been serving in the Senate since 2007. Of course, Mr. Representative Belton, who is here beginning in January 2015. Representative Pam Dickerson represents District 113 and has been a member of the House of Representatives since 2013. Representative Dale Rutledge represents District 109 and has been a member of the House of Representatives since 2013. And Representative Andrew Welsh, District 110, and he has been a member of the House of Representatives since 2011. And on behalf of the Newton County Board of Education, I'd like to thank you, Representative Belton, for being here this evening to discuss education legislation and its potential impact on the Newton County school system. We appreciate your hard work, commitment, and willingness to represent the citizens of each of your districts. We certainly recognize that your role is tough, as you have to make decisions that often result in winners and losers. We'd like to be certain, however, that the impact of your decisions will lead to winners in the form of our students, staff, and community. Again, thank you for being here, and welcome to the Newton County school system. At this time, it seems like I must have made a mistake in something, so we're having a little sidebar conversation.
Oh, I thought you said State Representative Pam Dickerson was 2013.
2011, yes. At this time, I'd like to turn over to our board chair to introduce herself and then the members of our Board of Education. Although Representative Belton, you probably know them all anyway.
All right, I'm Abigail Coggin. I'm District 5 representative, and we'll start down here to my right.
I'm Stan Edwards, I'm District 1 representative.
I'm Shaquila Henderson Baker. I'm District 3 representative. And Mr. Belton, I actually live in your district in the North Oxford tip near Walnut Grove.
I'm Eddie Johnson, District 2. Alman Turner, District 4.
All right, thank you. Well, you want to go ahead or?
Representative Belton, we invite you to the podium to talk with our board about what you know about the proposed education legislation and what your thoughts are on how it will impact our school system. And we certainly do appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight.
Well, thank you very much. It's my privilege to be here tonight. I have met all the board members many times, and I'm just straight off of an election, of course, and I appreciate all of you who have come. And I visited many of your schools personally and talked to many of your teachers. I hope that I'll always be a good supporter of public education. I am a school board member. People say, no, you're a state representative. No, I'm a school board member. That's how I feel. I think my job, really, my number one priority is schools and public schools in particular. I appreciate people who go to private school, but let's talk about the fact that 96% of the kids in Georgia go to public school. So that's where my focus is. I really appreciate you letting me come tonight. I'll hope I can come as much as I possibly can. I don't know if you want me to go through the bills that I think are interesting. I've got a whole stack of them right here if you want me to go through them all. But it has been been a lot of bills on education, and some are good, and some you probably won't like very much, but I don't know how you want to do that, or you want me to just answer your questions, or just can I go through the bills that you like me to go through?
I would like for you to use what you have and give us a brief synopsis, and then we can go from there if we have any questions or if there's one that you did not mention.
Okay. Well, I'll just start with 243. You know, House Bill 243 is probably something let me start with, there's one bill that I don't have in the stack here, but it's probably the most, it's a good bill in the sense that, as you know, now that we're not doing the Georgia high school graduation test anymore, we haven't done those for a long time. There was a bill that passed the House where we said that if you fail the Georgia high school graduation test, we're going to allow you to come back and get your high school graduation diploma. And I was told by most school boards wanted that, and hope if it passes the Senate, those kids who, because I know talking to people many times, people could not pass the science portion of this test. Sometimes they took it 12 times or something like that, and they still could not pass it. So that's one important bill that we passed. I think that will allow some of these people to get their high school graduation. And that's important for like military, also police and firemen. You have to have a high school graduation diploma. You know, a GED does not count. So that's one good thing I think.
That's House Bill
That's not
91.
true.
Okay, all right. We did pass that, so that we're very happy for that. House Bill 243 is probably one you're not going to like. It's the education savings account. I'm not in favor of this bill. It's basically worse to me than a universal voucher bill. It basically says that you can, we're going to take state money and give it to any kid who either goes to private school or to homeschool. And by the way, that's going to be about $180 million out of the account for the state. There's very little accountability for it. There's no accountability for how the money will be spent. You could theoretically, in my opinion, go to a dolphin excursion in Cancun and say this is an educational experience. So I am not in favor of House Bill 243. It's going to go before the House probably tomorrow or Friday, and that's how. You have any questions about that one? Senate Bill 2 is basically something that came across. It's going to allow some dual enrollment children to be able to get a high school graduation if they got the dual enrollment associate degree sort of situation, as long as they do certain core high school graduation requirements. And that did pass the Senate. We also passed the Education Committee in the House. It's going to, in other words, if you go to get a technical degree, as long as there are certain high school graduation core things that you've done, we're going to give you a high school diploma as well. House Bill 313 is a governor-generated bill. I think you're going to like this one. It says that each full-time, non-temporary employee of the state can give 8 hours of paid leave to come volunteer at a school. So in other words, if you're a state employee, we're going to give you 8 hours a year of paid leave to come volunteer at one of your schools. So I would think you would like that. So it's going to encourage volunteerism. There's a bill that's going to change the way we talk about charter schools and traditional status quo schools or IE2 schools. That we're thinking about the names, we're going to make it charter, and instead of calling IE squared, call them strategic, and then instead of status quo, call them traditional. I don't know why we had to have a bill for that, but we did. There's another bill, talk about age bill for kindergarten, and I don't know if you've gone through that, but basically we're going to delay the time, move the kindergarten age from September to August and from August to July. There's a huge outroar about this, many emails about making sure it didn't happen this year. So what we're going to do is we're going to phase in over a 3-year period. There's some people who say that the later you start with the better the kids are able to handle kindergarten. And so this bill did pass the House and is going to the Senate. There's also a bill about a charter school in place. And basically this bill is going to allow a private corporation, a private business to put money and create a enrollment zone so that they could create a charter school. Like a Coca-Cola could create a charter school. And they would put money into that charter school. That is something that a lot of people who like school choice do like this idea, and that bill did pass the Education Committee and will come to the House floor in the next day or two. There's one about legal immigrants, most of them children of war, to be honest with you, who have come across legally, that we're going to give them special education rights in order to qualify for the special education so that they can go to use that money for private schools. As you know, there's certain special education kids who are allowed to use that money to go to private schools. Well, we're going to let very, very few kids who have come from war-torn nations where they've seen their mothers and fathers being burned alive and this sort of thing, to use, that is going to be called a special education need because they can't speak English, and many of them are 12 years old or whatever, to be used at a private school. And there is a private school in North Atlanta that specializes in this, and so we decided to approve that. In the Education Committee, it's going to the House next couple of days. If I'm boring you, tell me. There's another one talks about cyberbullying that Representative Dickerson is putting together. That has gone through the committee and is going to the House floor. I have one about cyberbullying, as you know, Kelsey's Law. It actually happened to a young girl in Oxford who, through no fault of her own, the picture was not even of her. She was not sexting or anything like that. But some guy put her personal phone number and name next to a picture of a girl, completely different girl who was not doing good things, on a pornographic website. And believe it or not, that's not against the law. So that's the law that a bill that I'm presenting to the House tomorrow. There's one about here. What is it? Okay, allowing preference for charter schools for emotionally disadvantaged students, educationally disadvantaged students, and also for military. And this doesn't apply for y'all because it has to do with charter schools, but how they get their charter school population, they're going to say if you're a military kid or economically disadvantaged, or we're going to let you join into that charter school more easily, if that makes sense. What we don't want is charter schools to be only rich kids. That we don't want that to happen. There's one by a Democrat, though, from Augusta, Representative Prince, about magnet schools, about allowing children to go to a magnet school if they do not have a sport at that magnet school, to go back to their school of origin and play that sport. Like, say, if the magnet school didn't have football, you could go back to your magnet school, your home school, and play football. Now, you can't go to any school, and you have to be inside the system. But we approved that as well, and I was happy to do that. And that's basically what we're looking at right now. Are there any questions?
When is crossover day?
Crossover day is Friday.
Friday,
That's
okay.
right. That's right.
What's the current status of 170, House Bill 170?
And which one's that?
That's
The transportation.
The transportation bill passed the House, and I'm glad y'all asked me about that. My understanding is, and I don't want to talk about the politics of this, but basically, for one thing, I did not vote for it. I was never for it. I thought it always hampered the locals a lot. In my opinion, we're trying to steal from the locals in order to give to the state and pretend like we weren't raising taxes when we were. So I never liked it. Right now, the way it sits, okay, but I did not vote on the bill, actually, because I had to recuse myself, because towards the end of the debate, they added a Delta airline tax. And I'm an employee of Delta Airlines. So that was a $23 million tax they put on my company. So therefore, I was ethically required to recuse myself from that vote. But anyway, my understanding is that your e-loss will be able to occur and continue the way it is right now. When it ends, the next e-loss you come up with, the money you raise from taxes, from gas taxes, will have to be put on transportation. And they've expanded the word transportation to include buses and bus drivers. So theoretically, you will be able to move that money around and put it on bus drivers, but any gas money you got from taxes will have to be put on transportation of some sort. But other than that, they basically came off of all that bad stuff they're doing and basically making y'all whole as far as I'm understand the bill. Now, right now, we are raising the gas tax by about a dime a gallon. That's what we're doing. And that it's very likely the Senate will change that quite a bit because it's a huge tax increase. It just is. And of course, the reason why we're doing this is because the governor really wants $1 billion a year, for transportation. There's no question Georgia needs better transportation. And a lot of I'll just leave it at that.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Almond.
Has there been any push? There's been a lot of dialogue on private schools. Has there been any push to take public schools from under the restrictions that we have to play under that's given to us by the state and federal, and allow us to play by the same rules that public schools play with?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Mr. Turner. I did talk to the governor my first week, the governor's people, and it was a no-go. They want the accountability the way they want it, and that's where it is. And they want that. More and more is what they want is more accountability, which I completely understand, but they want to make that accountability based on just the CCRPI, as you know, and I think it's unfortunate because I think, as you know, teaching is more about engendering knowledge on children as opposed to test scores, which is what we've come to, and there's a lot of pushback on that. But right now, I have had that discussion, and it did not go well for me.
May I say something, just to follow up with that? Has there been any conversation regarding the CCRPI and the fact that it is a moving target? And so, because it's a moving target, my fear is that we're holding accountable to the wrong measures. Has there been any discussion about every year we change the way that we weight things, we change what we're measuring, and so in terms of the opportunity school districts, identifying the opportunity school districts by three-year consecutive of 60 or lower on the CCRPI might not necessarily be an accurate measure, given the target is not firm yet. It's not ferreted out all the way to the end. Has there been any?
There has been some discussion on that, and I'm just to be honest, there's a lot of. On the education committee, there's a lot of knowledge there where we understand that, but in the general house, there's just not, unfortunately. And that's they want a business model, and of course, this is children. We're not building widgets. We're creating human beings with minds of their own and wills and goals and desires and lives, and there has not been a lot of discussion in the house about that, but yeah.
I was gonna ask.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Every time I go, you go. I was gonna ask two questions. Actually, I wanted to know more of now that the school takeover plan has passed the Senate. What is the discussion in the House regarding that? That's the opportunity school districts, and that was the governor's big push. And then the other one I have a question about is regarding TRS, with making changes to that. Again, and that's Senate Bill 152.
TRS.
The teacher retirement system.
Okay, yeah. I've not heard almost any discussion on the teacher retirement system, to be honest with you. I really don't think that's going to pass.
Okay.
I think that would be too big a bite right now. There are, when teachers are a big constituent group, so I don't think there's any desire to go out there and go steal the teachers' retirement. Now, I did fail to mention the opportunity school districts. I'm really on the fence on that, and It's been done in New Orleans. Of course, they had an act of God that helped them quite a bit. It's been done and they had some gains, some minor gains in New Orleans. It's been done in Michigan. They had no gains. It's been done in Tennessee, and they haven't had enough time to have gains. So we don't really know if this works or not works. It's going to be very, very close in the House, I think, because there's a lot of people who do not like the idea that we're expanding the executive government. Republicans theoretically like to make things smaller, not bigger government. And what we're doing is we're creating a whole new bureaucracy to do this thing, which is anathema to many of us. So to answer your question, I think it's going to be very, very tough because they need 2/3 in the House, which is going to be very difficult to do because it's a constitutional amendment. I will say that, a school district like y'all are not going to be worried about this, or you should not have to worry about OSDs because they're really looking at the worst of the worst, the Fs out there. And there's about 20 schools out systems out there, most of them in Atlanta, but also in South Georgia. There's some school, some very, very rural areas where just do not have very good schools. Y'all are doing great, you're not one of these Fs, and they can't go in and take over, 50 schools. They're talking about taking over 5 or something like that, or maybe 15 or 20. But in general, I personally wish it was more of a Department of Education thing if they're going to do it at all. And certainly, this Ronald Reagan guy who talks about local control, I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it certainly kind of barks in the face of that kind of ideology.
Well, from what I understand on that, there are rules already in place or state statutes that allow for the Department of Education to go in and help those school districts and review them. And they've never been used before. They can't even come up with where, I think one side is saying, yes, you have, and the Department of Education are saying, no, we've never done it. Yeah. So, my concern is why are we doing this when we already have something in place that we need to at least try those options
That's
first.
exactly right. And the option is not to go in and there are different options. We're not saying we're going to go in and necessarily take over the school. They're saying that's an option. Another option is to close the school. But the better option is to remove the superintendent or to do other things. The taking over the school is kind of a D-Day or a nuclear option on that. And you're right. The Department of Education has the authority right now in code to do these things, and it's just not doing it.
Right.
Now, go ahead.
Oh, no, I agree. It's just that we already have this in place, so we need to go ahead and use what we have in place, then create more.
My concern
Government, I
was
think.
if it passes and if it goes through, then the options that you have, and even though we don't have a priority focused school, currently, but you take a chance of what if we do get that, and then if you close down the school, my understanding is how the resolution and the bill is written, then the school system wouldn't have access to that building for a year or so, and then if they reopen, they can't reopen with the same grade, and so that makes a financial crutch on the school system. And not only that, with the opportunity school superintendent coming in place, you have no regulations as a local board over that person, and then along with that, but that person has regulation over the board because he or she would tell us what specifically that school needs, and we have to fund it, no questions asked.
That's right. It would take local money away from you, and you lose buildings.
Yeah.
And there's no way to get you out of there's
Right.
no, in the law that they're proposing, there's no way to get you out of the OSD situation.
And it is my understanding, that the Opportunity School District, whoever the superintendent would be identified, could, when closing the school, notify our staff that they are no longer employed, but the district, having issued contracts, will still have to pay them and then pay for the new staff that is hired. To me, that is
And you have to find somewhere to
put the staff that was currently in the facility someplace else, which obviously definitely smacks in the face of financial
There's just
integrity.
too many open-ended questions on this, so as it's written, I can't be supportive of it at this time. I mean, it's just, there's not a lot of accountability written into it, and
Passed in the Senate.
I know.
And I've been in discussions with the Tennessee superintendent of OSD and also the New Orleans one, and both of them talked about this. I said, the carrot is they talk about carrots and sticks. Well, the stick is obvious. We're going to go and take you over your system. That's definitely a stick. Well, what's the carrot? Well, flexibility, but yet we have the flexibility right now. You got, and then philanthropy, okay, and then money. And a lot of money was put into these schools. A lot of federal money was put into New Orleans schools, especially. And you had this act of God, this Katrina thing. So it goes back to, we have the flexibility already. Philanthropy is money, and then money's money. So, I mean, what we're talking about is money, in my opinion.
They covered one of the questions I had. Another question I have, I know that you visit a number of schools throughout the state. Having done that, you're very knowledgeable of some of the things that school systems lack and what they need. My question is, how can and what can we do to force the people who make the laws to get people who know what our needs are to sit around the table and they listen to them instead of making things what they think we need? Because I see a problem in the fact that we implement, when I say we, not we, but the state and feds, they implement these programs, but they only stay in place for 2 years. That's no time to evaluate to see if they're going to be successful or not. So I think this is a problem that we have in evaluating and implementing programs and put them into our schools. So I would like to see something forced in making them or forcing them to have people who are knowledgeable in education to sit around the table and listen to them.
Right.
And stop listening to whoever. I don't know who they're listening to.
Yes, sir. Well, Mr. Turner, I agree, and there is a lot of talk about that, even at the House, about the fact that every time the education does something, 2 years later they undo it or they do something else. I think, this is my personal opinion, Barge was not successful as a superintendent of the schools, neither was Cox, and then the one with Shrinko was that was not real good either. So we have a lot of lack of leadership at the Department of Education, in my opinion, and they've done a lot of things to you, the local school board, me, the local school board, when I was over in Morgan. There is this year, they're going to do this huge traveling tour of the governor's office of trying to decide how we're going to redo QBE and the funding. And then as they come through, they're going to come through some place close to Newton County. I hope you'll go up there and talk to them and make your voices heard. You're a school board member, and I went to these things, and I talked to them. I told them what I thought, and But I mean, right now, the governor, he really is running the show, I should say. And right now, that's where direction is going. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much. I know we could all sit here all night long and talk about all the issues and how they would impact us directly, but I appreciate you taking this bit of time out of your busy schedule. I know how.
And I am going to leave after this. I have a very
Yes.
early morning and a very long day, but I really do appreciate all your time. You know how to contact me. Anytime you want to call me or email me, I hope you'll please do that and tell me your concerns.
Well, thank you so much for what you're doing for
God
us.
bless
So,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other special recognition or public participation?
No.
I don't believe so. Okay, we need to approve our agenda for the evening.
So moved.
Okay, first, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, approval of our minutes.
So moved. Second.
All right, first by Mr. Turner, second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving down, superintendent's reports, operations. Dr. Lockhart. Oh, excuse me, Miss Erica Jones, I'm sorry.
Robinson.
Oh, excuse me, Robinson. My notes are wrong. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing, so I apologize.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Newton County School System SPOS 4 distribution is approximately $827,000, and this will be the first distribution from SPOS 4. The monthly average for SPOS 3 was $881,000. The January TABT collection was $75,660. Property tax revenue collections are 93.60% collected this year versus
89.15% collected last year at this time. Expenditures are within budget and slightly better than last year, with 64.40% expended this year versus 64.47% expended this time last year. Are there any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Lockhart.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just a few items to highlight in the operations report. Maintenance and operations. Maintenance received 884 work requests in February 2015, with 730 having been completed. There are 154 remaining work orders in progress. School transportation. The average per gallon cost for diesel fuel purchased during February was $2.24. In February last year, the average cost of fuel was $3.41. We have noticed through procurement, Governor Deal has proclaimed that March 2015 is purchasing month in Georgia. Greg Goins, our procurement coordinator, and Corey Craver, procurement and facilities planning specialist, represent the school system at the Capitol for the signing of the proclamation. This spending has a significant influence upon economic conditions throughout the state, the country, and the world, and so we're just really glad our people were able to be representatives for us at that event. Few items in school nutrition. First item is a total of over 97,000 breakfast meals were served in February. This was an average of 6,503 breakfasts served per day, and the average daily breakfast participation for the month was about 36%. In the area of lunches, we served over 221,000 lunches in February, and the overall district average participation was about 79% for the month. Last thing I want to share with you in school nutrition is that our Newton County School Nutrition Program featured locally grown oranges throughout the school system as the farm to school produce item for February. And that's what I have to share with the operations report. Are there any questions on any of those items at this time?
Any questions? All right.
At this time, we have a presentation. This is our annual Ombudsman Program presentation. I asked for Miss Erica Freeman Jones to come forward and allow for her to get set up just to share with you where we are with Ombudsman.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Superintendent Fury. On behalf of myself and our Regional Vice President, Mac Pettit, and Ombudsman, thank you for having us tonight. What I'll share with you is our data for the 3.5 years we've been in partnership with Newton County. At Ombudsman, we believe that all of our students have value and they can learn and that they can develop their inherent talents. And we like to put up our vision and mission along with the district's vision and mission to show that we're on the same page and that we all have the same goal, that we want our students to be successful and develop their natural abilities. Over the last 3.5 years, we've served 1,238 students with an average attendance of 82% and a 3% recidivism rate. That means 37 of the students out of the 1,238 have had to return to Ombudsman. If I go too fast, let me know. On our demographics page, we want to show the population that we serve, and you will find that this is common throughout our Ombudsman programs. The majority of our students that we serve are males, 72%, and the majority of the students are African American, 75%. Also, the students, the majority of the students that we serve come to us as the 9th grader. And over half of those students are between the ages of 14 and 16. Here we wanted to share our enrollment data with you for the first 2 years of the program, last year and the fall of this year. We have 200 slots for Newton County, and as you can see, we utilize those slots, quite a few of those slots, over 90%. Throughout the 3.5 year period, we have served student population that's 33% that receive special services, and you see the breakdown of IEPs, 504 plans, and ELL. Attendance for the first 2 years, again, the overall average for the 3.5-year period is 82%. For the first 2 years, we had 85%, and we're trending at 80% for last year in the fall of this year. Our graduation rate has increased from the first 2 years of the program, where we had 48%, and last year 70%. And this year we have 5 potential graduates. Our stabilization rate, and what we mean by stabilization, we factor in those students who have remained in our program, they transitioned back to the district, or they completed their graduation requirements, and we consider those students as a success factor for the program. Any student that's dropped for attendance, behavior, or being detained count against our stabilization rate. Over the first 2 years, as you can see, was 91%. We dipped a little last year, but we're trending back up. As of the fall, we were at 92%. So we're holding on to our students. We place the STAR information up so that you can see the correlation between the credits earned, which will be coming up in the next 2 slides, and where our students are. The STAR is a diagnostic assessment to let us know where our students are when they enter into the program. And this allows the teachers to modify lessons for our students. And as you can see, our students are testing in the STAR significantly lower than what their status is. And that was for the math this year, and this is the reading when they came in for first semester.
Can you go back to the previous slide for 1 second? Okay. So not one person has tested at grade level?
This is the average. You do have some
okay.
students who test on their grade level or above.
Okay.
But we take the average for each grade level and place it on the chart. And here's where we have the credits earned. So for the first 2 years, 44% of the high school credits were earned with the students. And last year, 56%. And for the first semester, we had 62% of the high school courses are on track to earn their credit by the end of the year.
Let me ask a question, if I may. You mentioned upon entering the program, they're given a assessment test for math.
Math and reading.
And
yes.
reading, okay. Now, during that time, are they retested?
They are tested 3 times per year. When they
Okay.
first enter the program in December and then again in May.
So your instructions are modified to
Yes.
address some of their needs?
Because in that program, we can go in and the teachers can create lessons from that program based on where the students are.
Okay.
Yes.
And last question, as a result of the modification of their testing, has scores increased or decreased?
It varies by grade level. The middle school students, on average, they'll increase a little more than per se the 9th grade or 10th grade, but our juniors and seniors usually increase. So it varies by grade level. The discipline data, the suspension days, these are days, not students that were suspended, but the number of days we had to give out. For the first 2 years, you see it was pretty high, 304. Last year, 69 suspension days, and then we had 47 for the fall. The behavior drops, these are students that had to be removed completely from the program. We had 7 for the first 2 years, 2 last year, and then we had 2 this fall. We asked our students to share with us their experience while in the program. And one of our juniors, she explained that she wished she would have come on better circumstances, and that it was a negative connotation with the alternative school. But once she came to Ombudsman, she realized that it wasn't negative and it changed her opinion. And she feels like she enjoys being there and that our teachers are helpful. And this testimonial comes from one of our sophomore students who came to us. She was only supposed to serve first semester at Ombudsman, but she chose to stay for second semester. And as stated in her testimonial, she would like to continue through the 12th grade, but she wants to participate in the senior activity, so she's gonna go back to her home school after this year. And at this time, I'd like to introduce one of our juniors, Shakia Benson. She wants to share with you her experience at Ombudsman.
Well, you guys, my name is Shakia Benson, and I am in the 11th grade. Last year when I first came into Ombudsman, I was on the wing in the prayer. I thought about dropping out of high school and running the streets. Fast money was the only thing I thought about. I really didn't care about earning my GED nor a high school diploma. But however, the staff at Ombudsman haven't done it at all. They pushed me and pushed me and pushed me to do better, and I really enjoy being there.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. And that is what I have for you. Do you have any questions for me?
Board members, do you have any questions?
I think we're good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, staff, and that concludes the operations report.
Madam Chair, may I say something?
Yes.
Young lady, I don't know your, can you tell me your name again? Shakia. Thank you for sharing your experience with Ombudsman, and thank you for staying in school, because your choices will definitely provide you with different opportunities. Once you achieve your destination of a high school diploma, you will have the doors open for you to do many other things. So thank you for being brave to come here to tell us about your experiences, and thank you for making the right choice and staying in school. And we're certainly glad that the option was there for you. Thank you.
Very well said. All right, moving on.
Yes, ma'am. The curriculum instruction technology report and the enrollment report, followed by a presentation from Ms. Buff. Just a few items in the CIT report want to just share with you. Item number 2, the top spellers from each elementary and middle school representing grades 4 through 8 met at a district spelling bee. After 10 rounds of spelling, the spellers were narrowed to Jet Rawls of Indian Creek Middle School and Jaden Wheeler of Clements Middle School. The competition resulted in Jet Rawls winning the spelling bee and Jaden Wheeler securing the runner-up spot. So we're really proud of those students. Item 3, congratulations to our Newton County School System STAR students. The Page Student Teacher Achievement Recognition or STAR program recognizes Elise McDonald from Alcovey High School, Brittany Webb from Newton High School, and Evan House from Eastside High School. Brittany Webb was also named the School System STAR student. Next item is item number 4. This has been mentioned before, but it definitely bears repeating. Congratulations to the teachers, leaders, and students at all 3 of our high schools. They've been named by the College Board as Advanced Placement Honor Schools. All 3 schools were named AP STEM and AP Humanities schools, while Alcovey was designated as an AP Access and Support School and Eastside as an AP STEM Achievement School. So we're really proud of the work that they've done there. One last item of note I'd like to share is on page 3, item 20. DECA students from all of the high schools in Newton County participated in their state competition during the month of February. NCCA's DECA chapter was recognized as being among the top 15 in the state and has 2 students advancing to the International DECA Convention in Orlando, Florida. So really proud of the work that our students and staff are doing. That concludes the CIT report. Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to share the enrollment report.
Go ahead.
Enrollment report as of March 5th, 2015 is at 19,750 students. This same time last year, 19,459 students. So that's an increase of 291 students as of this time.
All right. Any questions for Dr. Lockhart? All right, thank you.
And at this, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think we have Ms.
Yes,
Buff.
another presentation.
Right.
Now, my presentation is going to be really long. Y'all know me better than that. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about some changes we're going to have for next year in high school math. Some background, as you probably know, the State Board of Education approved 2 different math sequences for next year. One is the integrated math that's currently taught, and the other is a traditional or more discrete math. The way the discrete math would work is that the standards, which will now be called the Georgia Standards of Excellence, they were formerly known as the Common Core Georgia Performance Standards, will be rearranged into a more discrete or traditional way. So basically the standards won't change, but the order in which we would teach them would. So what we did was we pulled all of the high school and middle school math teachers that teach high school courses together on February 24th to discuss the math options. And the 2 options that we discussed were continuing our current integrated model that we use now, or to begin rolling out a traditional or discrete mathematics option next year with the start of Algebra 1 in 9th grade and also in middle schools in the 8th grade. The teachers voted overwhelmingly to go with the traditional and discrete math model, and after discussing it at the district level and in the executive support team, we are supporting the teacher's choice to move into the traditional discrete math starting next year. So they will begin teaching Algebra 1 and it'll roll, so each year we'll introduce a new course. One other option that the state approved was a new Foundations of Algebra course, which we will also begin teaching in 9th grade next year. And this is a state-approved math course to provide increased prep and background knowledge to help students who struggle in math to succeed. So I will take any questions that you have.
Is that what you call long?
Mr. Johnson, you know how I am. I'm short, sweet, and to the point.
Yes. Are there any questions for Ms. Buff?
I don't have one particular to the math, but one in general. Digital curriculum for Newton County.
Okay.
What's our forward-looking view to engage that approach?
Well, with regards to textbooks, one thing that we have done is with the adoption of Springboard, which we use in our English and math, and I can only speak for secondary, it actually has a digital component to it. The students have access to the digital textbook, and the teachers have access to additional digital material. And as we adopt new textbooks, as the adoption cycle rolls, we will look at more digital options for the students. Right now, the state currently has the textbook adoption cycle on hold, and just before I came up here, they released a new textbook adoption cycle, which is even more different than the one we originally had. So as we adopt new textbooks, we will look into digital options.
What's the participation in what we have available now for the students to get into the digital environment?
I would have to check into
Devices,
participation.
what
I'm
I'm
not sure.
referring to.
Devices or participation with the digital curriculum in Springboard?
Well, both. You got to have the device, right?
Yes.
So how many of our students got that to participate?
That would be something I think we would have to ask Dr. Shattuck. I'm not sure what the participation is. I know in the high school, we have a very widely used Bring Your Own Technology program, and each high school and middle school has been purchasing new technology, especially with those ELO funds that I spoke to you about earlier. A lot of the schools purchased iPads and new computers for the kids that don't have their own devices. But with regards to the access and kids that use digital material outside of the school day, I would have to check with the company to see if they can track that for us.
Excuse me, if I can just add, Mr. Johnson, what we have in our schools, we call them assets. That's every technological device we have, be it a laptop, computer, netbook. What we can do is get you a list of that for the next meeting, just so that you can have that information, so you can see, just how much technology our students do have.
Okay, I appreciate that. One other is leading me to another question.
Okay.
Is I thought I think it was passed a few months ago that all students is required to have a device, one-on-one technology by 2020. I don't know how that
I don't
funding.
think that it was passed.
It didn't,
Didn't pass?
No, they changed the, I don't know if it'll pass the entire piece of legislation, but they changed the language to say, instead of required, to say encouraged. Because there are many school systems who couldn't pull that off. But to answer your question about the digital resources, we have Jennifer Williams, who works with Dr. Shattuck, and she actually works with the teachers to teach them how to use the SLDS and to access the digital resources that are available to teachers through SLDS that are put out by the State Department that are free to us to use. And so when she visits schools, that's one of the things that she talks to teachers about so that they can expose students to those digital resources while in school. So that's a part of the, I think a part of the answer to the question you asked. There's digital resources available to us free of charge from the state, and we have a process in place by which we train our teachers to utilize those materials.
I have one question that may be a stupid question, but I'm
There
going
are
to
no
ask.
stupid questions, Mr. Turner.
Why is it that the state recommend different books for math? Because number stays the same. It's just a difference in how it may be delivered, but math is math.
Well, first of all, I can't speak for the state, but I can speak for what I think is part of the reason. You know, with the new standards that we have, they ask for students to think differently. It's not just answering. When I was in school, I had 40 math problems that I went home and did at night, and that was the math that I did. These are more, I guess, what you and I would consider word problems. So it asks students to think differently, and it's more about the application of math rather than just answering a question. So how would you apply it to real life? There's a lot of questions. I have a 7th grader, and a lot of the questions that he has at home are things that he could actually use math for if he was doing something in the real world. So I think it's not necessarily about changing the math, it's about changing the way they ask the questions. So it's application and creation rather than just being
Right. Well, I understand
solve for
that.
X.
This is not saying that we're doing anything wrong, just
Right.
a question here. And I guess my other issue is that they implement these different techniques, but they're long enough to see if they're successful or not, because you have no way of tracking a particular student to find out if it is successful. And it's changing midstream, you're dealing with a total different set of students. So that's that's one of my frustrations with the state.
Right, and currently, and I'm sure that you're aware of this, we're currently finishing a math that was GPS based. We have the new CCGPS, and now we'll be moving to the Georgia Standards of Excellence. So currently, that's kind of where we are, and it's very frustrating to the teachers too.
Final question.
Yes, sir.
Are we at liberty to identify a technique ourselves, not to go against what state may ask us to do, and put something in place that will address our children's needs? Can we do that?
We are working towards having more support for our district, and you'll hear some more plans about that coming up soon, I think, with some of the budget discussions. But yes, we are at liberty to provide additional supports in addition to what the state asks us to do.
And that back again to my initial question. So why do we have to continue to buy these books?
Well, the kids need to have a resource to use. So whether we buy, right now we use a consumable book for secondary. So it's a book that they use each year and they get a new one the next year. So it's not a traditional textbook that they have. So whether they had a textbook or whether we printed off things for them to do ourselves, they're still going to have materials. And having a consumable text is actually what's going to allow us to do what we're doing now, to switch to what the teachers want to do with regards to math. So I think that, as math changes in the way that the state wants us to do things, changes, the way that we have it set up with the consumable text is probably the best way to go.
Okay.
I got one question.
Go ahead.
It goes back to the presentation, I'm sorry, just for clarity. Okay, with your presentation, the way that math is gonna be taught in the school system for 2015, 2016 is back to the traditional way.
For
Whereas
ninth grade.
For ninth grade,
Yes.
just for ninth grade.
Right.
Okay.
Because
that's what I wanna
if
know.
we were to roll out the traditional discrete math all at one time, there will be a gap in what our
Between what
students.
some of the students.
Right,
Okay,
right.
that's what I needed to clarify. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
I want to put you on the spot deliberately, I'm telling you up front.
Okay, thank you. I'm ready.
I'm encouraged by the concept that you got engaged here. With a high turnover rate in math for our employees, if you had that magic wand, the tip of a spear, that you could implement something and the superintendent would agree to reduce our math employee turnover rate, what would it be?
You know, I'd have to think on that, Mr. Johnson. I don't think that there's one specific answer to that. I think that there's a lot of different things, if I just could magically make it all happen. So I'll have to think on that, but I'll think on it and I'll get back to you.
Appreciate it very
All right.
much.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on. Old business, board action relative to revision of our Newton County School System Board Policy, EE, Food Services and Management.
Yes, ma'am. That policy still is on the table until next week.
All right, thank you.
Next one. 30 days. I thought it was, oh, well, okay.
Been a long
I just
30
thought it was time to get it off the board.
Sorry. Apologize, we had. All right, new business, item A.
Yes, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to take items A and B together. They're virtually the same.
Yes.
Both of these are in regards to our elementary and secondary handbooks respectively. The superintendent recommends the approval of the system portion of the 2015-16 elementary and secondary student handbooks. Changes by page number are noted below. In the attached document, additions have been noted in blue and deletions have been struck through in red. And what we would just ask is that if you haven't reviewed this already, to review this for board action next week on March 17th. If you have any questions about any particular items, we'd be happy to address those at this time, though.
Any questions? All right. Moving on to item C.
Item C is the purchase of student agendas. The superintendent recommends the student agendas needed for the school system to be purchased from Premier Agendas Incorporated of Bellingham, Washington. Each year, of course, we always renew and get brand new agendas, and it's that time of year for us to make that purchase.
All right, questions? Moving on, item D.
Moving on to item D, inclement weather makeup recommendation, March 17th. The superintendent recommends students not be required to make up February 25th, 2015, an instructional day due lost to inclement weather.
All right, questions? Moving on to item E. I believe that is correct.
Yes. Item E, and that is the approval of the amended ombudsman contract. Before I go into the recommendation, there was a discussion to try to see if there was a way for us to reduce the amount of seats that we currently have with the ombudsman, and you just saw the presentation, and what we're requesting is to move from 200 seats down to 180 seats. And with that being said, I'll read what we have. The superintendent recommends board approval of the amended ombudsman contract for the 2015-16 school year. Section 3.2.2 of the amended contract states 2015-2016. If applicable, the district's cost will be $1,099,060 or a per slot cost of $6,259 for 50 middle school slots and $6,047 for 130 high school slots. The contract services amended agreement is attached. And again, this contract will remain in effect for 2014-17. And with that amendment, this will come to us at a savings of $123,060 for the upcoming 15-16 year. Mr. Matt Pettit is here, our Regional Vice President of Ombudsman, and he and I have had a discussion, and he also is able to freeze that price for us for 2016-17. That's the last year of our contract, of the true contract cycle. Under the original contract in 2016-17, our cost would be $1,234,300. It was going to go up for 16-17. Ombudsman is going to freeze that at that $1,099,060 rate. So in the 16-17 year, our savings will be even more because we will save $135,240. And that concludes that board item.
All right, are there any questions?
I have a question.
All right.
So with this contract that we're locked in for 16-17 with this number, like, is no way to amend that number?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so the number for 16-17 is still at
It's frozen.
Is at 180.
Oh.
So those slots, so there's no way that we can amend it if we see that we don't need 180.
I believe that we would be able to go back and negotiate with Ombudsman. If we see that we need to reduce further, then we will have to
With the
renegotiate.
price change, if we need to reduce it, because even the 180 for the last couple of months, because last year I had asked about that too, as well as the number, and the number haven't been close to, I mean close to 180 from what I can see. So even if we go below 180 for 16-17, would they keep the cost the same?
I think what we would have to do is look at what the numbers are at the end of the year, and then Mr. Pettit and his team and I will see if we could renegotiate to see where we could stand. So,
As long as it's negotiable.
yes, ma'am. Ombudsman has been a partner with us. They've been extremely flexible, and we have been able to get some very good negotiations between the two.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you. If there are no other questions, we can move on to item F. Ms. Lumens, I believe you've got item F and G. Is that correct?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Item F, the superintendent recommends the annual renewable contract awarded to B&G Services doing business as Prime Maintenance of Grayson, Georgia for the purchase of fire ant treatment services to be renewed for an annual contract period. The effective date of the renewal will be March 20th, 2015, and the expiration date will be March 19th, 2016. The contract was originally awarded on March 18, 2013. It covers the treatment of all grounds that students and staff frequent, as well as athletic fields, playgrounds, and mulch areas. The vendor has performed satisfactorily, met all contractual requirements, and has agreed to continue their services under the current terms and conditions of the contract with no price increase. The estimated contract value is $35,000. This cost will be paid for with budgeted FY15 general funds. This concludes item F.
All right, are there any questions for item F? All right, moving on.
Item G, the superintendent recommends the video cameras and associated equipment needed for a school system be purchased from Banner Security Systems of Conyers, Georgia. The school system needs to purchase additional video safety equipment for some of its schools and facilities. The purchases include additional cameras and network video recorders, as well as replacing older network video servers that are at the end of their useful and supportive life. The equipment will be purchased from Banner Security Systems and is standardized throughout the school system. Banner also holds a contract for the maintenance and upgrade of said equipment, as well as other components that together constitute the intrusion detection system. The schools and facilities and associated costs are summarized in the chart below. Thus, the total cost for all needed projects is $152,070.95. This cost will be paid for with budgeted FY15 general funds. This concludes item G.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a well, not a question, just I guess a request. Would it be possible for us to receive those who bid on these different projects? So it can-
There was no bid. This is an existing vendor that provides all of our cameras so that we have standardized
Right,
equipment
not-
and monitoring throughout the
Right,
system.
not this one, but I noticed that on some others, we said that they were the lowest bid.
Oh,
so-
that bid was 2 years ago. That was on the pest control.
Yes,
That was bid last year. This is a renewal.
okay. So you will give us those when it's a new contract, when it's bidded out?
If it's a new contract, yes, sir.
Because we haven't been getting some of them, the reason I'm asking that question.
If we bid it out, we give you it. We will make sure that you get it.
Okay, great, that's all I need, thank you.
I have one. Do we have a set of standards in the kind of video cameras that we are purchasing? I'll ask it another way. What do we expect the cameras to do? How do we know we are getting a camera that has the minimum focus and range, the nomenclature of the equipment that we're purchasing?
We have multiple discussions with Banner when we're looking at newer cameras, and they show us different options, and we choose based on the cost. Of course, we cannot afford the top of the line that are the, prime cameras, so that we try to find a camera that meets our needs without being.
Well, that's the thrust of my question. You know your needs, but what are we asking for? I mean, there's some basic performance items in selecting a camera. And range, clarity.
I'm not sure I can even answer that question, because each camera depends on where it's located in the school and what we're focusing on. So it's not a standard camera for every location. We might have a different camera in stairwells because it's focused in a different way. So we negotiate with our vendor for the best camera for the location.
Well, I'm not getting the clarity that I would like, but I'll pass up for now and come back later.
I think I understand what he's asking. I think he's asking who's assessing our needs, because the security company can come in and sell you an item,
That's correct.
but it may not meet the needs where we want
Two of our
coverage.
technology staff members are involved in the evaluation of these cameras and in discussions with Banner to make sure that we're getting the technology that we need.
And I guess, one question that I have, has there been discussion with that particular school
Yes, sir.
to
Yes,
identify
sir.
areas where there are problems?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All
I
of
think
these
that's what you
requests
asked.
are driven by the schools.
Okay,
The schools have approached us and said, we have blind spots, we have cameras that are failing.
gotcha, good,
Yes, sir.
great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you much.
All right. Moving on. Any other questions? Thank you. Mr. Barr, you have item H.
Good evening. In item H, the superintendent recommends the identified items be declared surplus and disposed of per board policy DO. The items for your consideration are from the maintenance department, Middle Ridge Elementary, and the procurement department. That concludes item H.
All right, any questions? There are none, thank you. Oh,
One
excuse me, I'm
comment
sorry.
here. I see we got, the first one I pulled up was a 1996 Ford 150 truck.
Right.
Was that a new truck that we purchased, or did we?
That truck we purchased, it was a used vehicle that we purchased from Snap and Shoals EMC. And after it had exhausted its use at that location, we picked it up.
Okay.
So it's very worn at this point.
I thought you would have put a bus or two on here. Thank you.
All right,
All
yes,
right,
sir.
thank you. All right, Mr. Shattuck, I believe you have got I and J. All right,
Good evening.
Good evening.
Ms. Ferry, Madam Chairwoman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Item I, the superintendent recommends the acceptance of proposals for telecommunications internet access and internal connections needed for the school system as listed in the summary chart below. Item I is specifically about E-rate. And what we do every year is we put out solicitations for bids on various products we've identified that is needed. And we receive the bids, and we have to submit those bids to E-rate. And then E-rate goes over them and then decides how much they're going to fund. This item specifically is about the submission process. You're agreeing that we get to submit these bids to E-rate. When E-rate comes back, and if they fund some of our projects, we bring those individual projects back to you so you can vote on expending funds. This item does not expend funds, it gives us permission to submit for funding.
All right, are there any questions?
No.
All right. Item, yes, Jay, sorry.
Item number J, the superintendent recommends the wireless access points needed for our Kobe High School be purchased from Infinity Network Solutions of Macon, Georgia. We had planned on replacing those access points next year, but this spring, early this spring, they started failing, and they're in the process of failing. So they're intermittently on and intermittently off. And what we're concerned about is going into testing. If we have that up and down activity going on, testing will be made impossible for those students who are testing using the wireless network. So we're recommending we replace the access points in Alcovy now for $31,921. That's 50 access points, all the access points in Alcovy. We're switching brands. We're going from 3Com to AeroHive. AeroHive has proved to be a very stable platform, and it gives us the ability to control everything from a central location. So it's a much better system than what we've had.
Okay. Any questions? This one we do need to take a vote on tonight. So if there are no more questions for Mr. Shattuck, then.
May I ask why?
I didn't want you to leave me out, Mr. Johnson.
I was giving you credit up until you said you had voted on it tonight. Why the urgency?
Because we start testing the week after spring break, which is basically in 4 weeks. And we have to order them from the manufacturer, and that takes time to get them in and then get them over to us and then have them installed. And the week of spring break, everyone's off. So basically, we have 3 weeks to get this work done. That's the urgency, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. There are no other questions. Do we have,
So moved.
thank you.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
All right,
Thank you. And Mr. Johnson, to answer your questions about the assets that we have a total of 24,000 assets in the county. Approximately 15,000 of which are internet-connected devices or computers. And then there's a breakdown, and if you'd like, next month, I'll bring you a complete breakdown of all our assets.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, our last item tonight is item K, board action relative to superintendent's recommendations in executive session. Dr. Lockhart.
Yes, Madam Chair. The superintendent requests that the board approve the personnel recommendations made during executive session.
All right, I need to recuse myself on number 136. Are there any others who,
11, 40, I think it's 40.
Yes, sir.
Recuse myself on item 294.
Yes, sir.
Recuse myself on item 1129 and 1234.
Yes, sir.
All
So
right.
move.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, and just to explain, we were, these are teachers or staff who we have direct relationships with, family members, and that's why we had to recuse ourselves. All right, any other matters of interest?
Madam Chair, just that we have our March Education Summit on Saturday at Newton High School beginning at 9 a.m. With registration, and it does not require tickets to attend. And we are looking forward to everybody joining us at Newton High School at 9 o'clock on March 14th.
All right. And one thing, isn't the governor's, Mrs. Deal, going to be at South Salem?
Oak Hill.
At Oak Hill, excuse
Yep.
me, this week, or
Yes.
tomorrow, in
I
fact.
think it's tomorrow?
Yes.
Tomorrow, Sherry? Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Mrs. Deal will be there to meet with our pre-K students, to read to them, and to talk to our second grade students at Oak Hill Elementary School.
All right, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn for the evening?
So moved.
Okay, a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.